As Fiona churned closer, many Atlantic Canadians rushed out to stock up. Fresh produce, baked goods, anything that doesn't need refrigeration.
We had people lining up before we even opened, people calling before we even opened saying, "Can you hold bread for me?"
This store doesn't have a backup generator. They worry about what happens if their power goes out. Because there's little question, the power will go out. Nova Scotia Power has activated its emergency hub. It's monitoring the grid, preparing to send out workers as long as it's safe.
As of right now, we do have over 800 people in the field right now getting ready to restore power, and hundreds more behind the scenes coordinating that effort. In addition to that, we have reached out to our partners in Ontario, Quebec, all of Atlantic Canada, and Maine to have other contractors available if we do need to bring them in as well.
Quebec hydro crews have already headed onto the Magdalen Islands, while those on PEI spent the day doing maintenance to try to help the infrastructure weather the storm. In coastal New Brunswick, people scrambled to get fishing boats out of the water in time. In Halifax, officials have been urging those without homes to go to emergency shelters.
Living outside in general across the year is a really challenging thing, and in a hurricane, it's almost impossible to keep dry and safe.
The Halifax waterfront has never been blocked off before, a safety measure now to keep everyone away. And on Cape Breton Island, where Fiona is expected to hit hard, so many people filled up on gas for cars and generators, some stations ran out completely.
And Shana, we know Newfoundland and Labrador is bracing now too.
That's right. After Fiona leaves the Maritimes, it will head for Newfoundland and Labrador. That province is expected to be lashed by strong winds, lots of rain, storm surge, and Premier Andrew Furey told people today in a message to be prepared, and he also said that that province's emergency management station has been opened.
All right, let's turn to Kayla Hounsell on Cape Breton Island for us tonight. Kayla, as we heard there, people where you are could be some of the hardest hit by Fiona.
Yes, Janella, I'm here on the Sydney waterfront, where, as you can see, the rain is actually already falling heavily, and those winds are really starting to pick up ahead of Fiona's arrival. As you said, Cape Breton Island is expected to be in the direct impact zone. Forecasters say winds here could exceed 140 kilometers an hour, with rainfall totals of more than 150 millimeters. Storm surge is also a concern, particularly for people living in those low-lying areas along the coast. So Centre 200, the arena here, is open tonight for anyone who doesn't feel safe staying in their homes tonight. The mayor here has noted the island has been through events like this before, but she fears nothing to this extent. You may recall last November there was a significant wind and rainstorm here that washed out sections of that world-famous Cabot Trail, cutting off entire communities. That took months to fix, and just last month there was another washout, so the infrastructure remains vulnerable. There is also only one way on and off this island. The Canso Causeway connects the island to mainland Nova Scotia. So as the mayor said, that causeway is incredibly important. It does remain open and will so as long as the weather permits, but certainly, Janella, everyone here on Cape Breton Island bracing for the worst tonight.
Okay, Kayla Hounsell in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Thanks. And from Cape Breton Island to Prince Edward Island, that's where we find Katie Nicholson tonight. Katie, one of the biggest concerns there is going to be storm surge.
Yeah, historic storm surge we heard from the province. I'm in Charlottetown right now, where people have been told to hunker down as this storm presses in. When we came across the Confederation Bridge earlier today, it was hard not to think, as Kayla talked about, the idea that this is an island, and there's, there was some traffic that's already been restricted. There's only really one way to get goods in. The ferries aren't running right now because of the storm as well. And as we hit the northeast coast, that's where we started to see that, the gas station had been out of gas not once but twice this week, with people buying. That northeast coast is where we went because our own meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff said, no, this is the area of PEI that is going to be most hardest hit by storm surge and winds. Of course, when we got there today, there were oyster farmers hauling out their cages in a race against time, just trying to get that stuff out of there before this storm hit. We also spoke to the manager of the harbor there. She said where we're standing today on this dock is going to be underwater tomorrow. She said the storm surge they're expecting, a historic 2.5 meters, that could just spell disaster for her harbor. Here's Sheila Eastman.
The biggest worry would be, once the vessels are gone, the biggest worry is infrastructure, because we have no idea. I know there'll be a lot of gravel, etc. move in the morning. The biggest worry for us is what comes in with the tidal surge, with the storm surge. There's a lot of debris in the ocean that you don't see.
Now, the other thing that's happening, these really heavy winds, high winds, we heard today from the Office of Emergency Measures here, really for all islanders to stay away from their windows because of these high winds, and particularly windows in the north part of your house because of fears the winds will be so high that they can blow windows inward. Janella?
CBC's Katie Nicholson in Charlottetown. Thanks. All right, CBC News meteorologist Ryan Snodden is in Halifax tonight. Ryan, take us through the timeline of what people can expect over the coming hours and into the next few days.
This is going to be a long duration event. One of the reasons why it is going to be such a severe storm. It's going to take its time crawling through the region. Note the timeline here. So the strongest winds, the heaviest rain really ramping up late this evening, continuing through the overnight hours when we're all waking up on Saturday morning. The winds and the rain continue, and in fact, likely peaking mid-Saturday morning. Now, as we work our way into the afternoon, we are still looking at those winds gusting over 100 kilometers per hour. Some locations across eastern Nova Scotia, especially Cape Breton and into southwestern parts of Newfoundland, are looking at over 12 hours of winds gusting over 100 kilometers per hour. Obviously, that is going to bring an extreme risk of power outages and widespread impacts at that. So that is going to be one of the big factors with this storm.
And Ryan, let's talk about the water and the wind, because it is going to be dangerous.
Absolutely. I mean, these gusts that we're talking about, widespread gusts, 100 kilometers per hour, because the storm is so large. The strongest gusts, 120, 130, possibly exceeding 140, especially near the center of the track, Cape Breton, eastern mainland Nova Scotia, and southwestern parts of Newfoundland. But the winds gusting to 100 kilometers per hour could stretch as far as southwest Nova Scotia to southwestern parts of Newfoundland to Deer Lake and all the way to the Burin Peninsula. Rain is the other story with this. Fiona's track along and west of that, we're looking at a wide swath of rainfall totals exceeding 100 millimeters, could exceed 150 millimeters, possibly 200 millimeters locally in some of these areas. And as we heard from Katie, storm surge is also going to be a big issue with this storm, southwestern Newfoundland and across the Maritimes. Storm surge, rain, wind. This is going to be a big storm.
All right, Ryan Snodden in Halifax. Thanks so much.
Thank you.